Hello, you guys. Hey, it is Desiree Summer, and I am coming to you with our final week of July on how to be happier. And so far, we have covered quite a lot of ground. In our first week of How to Be Happier, we talked about how to focus our mind so that we can realize all the things that are working, that are good, that are okay, that are already happy in our lives. And the reason why we did that isn't so that we could settle for less or just be happier where we are. We did it so that we were going to build on a sense of abundance instead of lack, right? We want a base level of abundance because it is really hard to build up when you have a sense of emptiness or a sense of lack. Much easier when you have a base level sense of enoughness or even abundance. Then we went on to week 2 where we built on that sense of enoughness and we created even more happiness. We learned how we can daily contribute small things to create happiness for ourselves through our actions in our surroundings and external world. That was a super fun week. Then last week, we changed our stories. Our stories about happiness, about our lives, often limit us. They make us unhappy. And so we learned how to transform them into happier, more joyful stories. But not just that, we also learned how to turn our stories around so that they can motivate us to create more happiness, to go after more things that are going to fulfill us in so many different ways. Like I said, that's a lot of ground, so you may be wondering what on earth could be last? What on earth could there be that we can do to create even more happiness? Well, it's probably pretty obvious, but there isn't just ourselves in the world, and there's not just our physical surroundings. There's also other people. And I think you probably know intuitively that other people can either increase our sense of happiness or they can diminish it. In fact, if you're around someone who's unhappy or angry or sad for long enough, you will notice that your happiness tends to plummet as well. So that's what this week is all about. It's about how to surround yourself with happy people, but not from a sense of meanness or harshness, from a sense of compassion. Because sometimes people around us that we love very much are going through a hard time. They could be dealing with an illness, a death. They could be caretaking for others, and we don't want to limit our contact with them. But we need to have a game plan for how to deal with the stress of that. So that's what this week is going to discuss. And we're going to start off with the worksheets. I suggest you guys go and download them. There will be a link in the description, or it will at least tell you where you can go to get the worksheets. So what I would love for us to do first off is just a simple audit of the people in our lives. There's a couple categories I want you to think about. You're going to list people, and then you're going to say, do they make you happy? Do you feel neutral around them? Or do they make you unhappy? Then you're going to talk about why. So the 3 categories I really want you to focus on are people who are around you daily. So if you share an office space with someone, that's probably someone you're going to want to list. If you live with someone, definitely someone you're going to want to list. But I also want you to look at people that you know right away. Even if you don't have daily contact with them, there are people in our lives that we're like, oh, that girlfriend that I used to have, and she moved a couple states away. We still stay in contact, but she used to make me so happy. Like, we had a blast just having a girls' night together, hanging out, being friends, all of those things. Or people that you know right away. You don't have a lot of contact with them, but you know, oh, that one client is so unhappy and so critical. They really make me feel unhappy. So people that are in your daily routine, that are close to you, people that you have a strong feeling either way on, even if they're not in your daily routine. And then last, I want you to consider your social media feeds, right? Some of us spend a lot of time on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, Facebook. I want you to think about whose feed you see a lot and how they make you feel. Again, you're going to list their name. Then you're going to say, do they make me happy? Do I feel neutral? Or do they make me unhappy to be around them? And then I want you to list why. For instance, do they complain a lot? Are they going through an illness right now? Do they make me feel unhappy in comparison to them? That's also a really valid reason. Then we're going to go through some questions, which is going to be the bulk of the assignment. So the first question is, who are the happiest people that you found in your contact list? What are their names, and how can you spend more time with them to boost your happiness? Research has shown that the more we spend time with people who are already happy and make us feel happy, we get a boost to our own happiness. And the reverse is also true. The more we spend time with people who are unhappy, who are angry, cranky, complaining, sad, all of those things, unfortunately, it diminishes our happiness by a certain level. So make a list of who is happy in that contact list. Notice how many people you have, and then just brainstorm some ways that you could potentially spend more time with them. All right, number 2. Do you have enough happy contacts in that list? Do you have at least 5, and is that enough for you? And then where or who might be new a happy person that you could befriend or get closer to? I want you to brainstorm a list of who potentially is in your life that you could befriend. Maybe there is a new hire at work that seems pretty upbeat and you haven't had a chance to meet them yet. Maybe there's places that you could go where you could see if there are happier people. I'm not going to ask you to commit to all of these, so for right now, I want you to just freely brainstorm as much as you can on the list. You can decide later which ones you actually want to do. 3, now we're going to go to the reverse side, right? Who makes you unhappy on that list? And how could you possibly limit some of your contact with them? You don't have to get rid of them, but you could limit. If you have, for instance, a coworker who is chronically complaining to you and maybe isn't a good friend of yours, perhaps you could figure out ways to stop that conversation from happening, to turn it around. Make a list of those and come up with a brainstorm on how you could limit the negativity and your contact with them. The 4th one is for what we just talked about before. You know, if we have people that we are caretaking, or that maybe is a boss, someone we can't get away from or we don't want to get away from, someone who's going through a heartbreak and they're a little bit of a downer right now for a good reason, I want you to figure out a way to restore equilibrium. If we're going to be around people that are going through a hard time, or if we have to be around someone who is chronically angry, like a boss, hopefully that's not happening, but it does happen sometimes, then you need to figure out activities, places, and things that will help you restore that equilibrium. And I want to give you one big caveat here, and that is venting is just not a good idea. Right? We think when we vent to another person about what's going on that we get relief, but often it doesn't make us feel relief. It lets us feel exhaustion, but we still feel bad, and we often feel worse rehashing it over and over. I'm not going to say you can't vent. I'm going to say don't put it for this one, right? So think of places and activities that restore you back to peace. For me, being outside, being in nature is definitely one of them. I love to garden. Maybe for you, it's watching a certain television show. Maybe it is arranging flowers. Whatever it is, I want you to brainstorm a list. For the last category, we're going to talk about how to share our happiness, right? Because happiness is catching, as I just said. If you're happier, you can share that with other people. They can be happier. Now you have another person in your life who's even happier, and it ups your happiness, and that's just a nice thing to have happen. I think we forget sometimes that we can share happy, joyful things as well. So that's what this category is about. So go ahead and brainstorm a list of things that you like to do that make you happy, and how you could possibly share them with more people in your life. You know, I love going to new restaurants, but I kind of stopped several years ago with COVID and everything that was going. It seemed like restaurants had closed down even after the economy and everything opened up. And so that is a great one that I can share with people and ask friends, you know, hey, I found out about a new restaurant. Would you like to go? I love going to films, so that's always a fun one to invite people to. So those are the kinds of things I want you to brainstorm. Last, now is the commitment part. I want you to look at those 5 categories and decide which one would benefit you the most. Which one is going to benefit you and your sense of happiness the most? Which is the most beneficial to focus on for this week? Maybe you really resonate with hanging out with more positive people and putting that on the books. So that would be the one that you would choose, right? But maybe for you, you're noticing that there are a lot of negative people at work or in your life, and you want to limit the conversations that you have with those people and some of the time. So pick one of the 5 that we talked about, and then you're going to talk about a specific action that you can take daily. Just picking a category and then trying to wing it every day is just not a great idea. So pick something and start to think about how you can actually do that daily. If you're going to spend time with more positive people, when you're at work, who does that include? When you're off of work, who does that include? What happens on the weekend? Who can you be spending time around who's positive on your weekend? Make a list of those people. There's another caveat for this that I really want to encourage you to stay away from. You get to pick which one of these categories that you want to do. If inviting people out seems really stressful for you, it's not something you're used to, but it does excite you, you can pick a teeny tiny action to do every single day. So you could just tell yourself, I'm going to talk about things that I love to do with people, and I'm just going to watch the reaction. And for this week, I'm not going to actually invite them. I'm just going to start talking about things that I love. That gets my heart beating just a little bit, but it's not too much so that I'll resist it all week and avoid it and forget it, those sorts of things. So feel free to take things as slowly as you need. However, I have seen this for the 5 years that I've been life coaching, that sometimes people get really stuck in researching. They put on their daily thing that they're just going to research how to meet new people, or they're going to research how to set a boundary. That's a great way of doing something without really doing something. For most of us, Googling or researching doesn't really make our heart flutter. It feels like a safe, snuggly, easy way to pretend we're doing something or sort of hide. There's not really a lot online for these kinds of things that you probably haven't heard of forever. And further, while I want you to take it as slow as you want to take it, I think that's necessary. I also don't want you to do something that's not going to get you anywhere, and that feels too safe. The way we end up stretching our comfort zone, I often think about dough, especially something like pizza dough. When you make pizza dough, it has a lot of elastin in it. So you roll it out and then it stretches, takes a lot of work, but then it tends to shrink back. The elastic springs back. So you have to keep rolling it out, it springs back, keep rolling it out, and eventually it relaxes. If you do things that make you just a little bit nervous and you keep doing them, it's like rolling it out, it's nervous, you do it, the dough springs back into shape, it still makes you nervous to do it, you do it, and eventually you'll relax into it, just like the dough. If you never actually roll the dough out though, if you let it stay just exactly where it feels most comfortable, you don't get anywhere. And the opposite is also true. The same thing is true for the opposite. If you try to take a really big step that you're not ready for, that scares you too much, you'll end up spending a lot of energy and you'll get tired before the dough relaxes, or you'll end up ripping the dough. So you need to find the sweet spot. And the sweet spot will not be Googling or researching something, not for these little tiny actions. It will be actually doing something. So that is what I wanted to say for that. Then you have your morning journal. It's going to ask you for that commitment to write it down and to make sure that you did it. So that is what we are doing this week. We are working on how to surround ourselves with happy people and protect our energy and still be compassionate and kind to all the people around us. It's going to be a really fun week. Like I said, I'm going to be doing it with you. And I will talk to you guys on Wednesday, and then on Friday we will wrap it up. Can you believe it? It's going to be so much fun. Hope this helps. See you then.